right, everybody, welcome. I'm Howie Howard from Mr. Furious Records. Today's musical adventure on Dat Fury Radio, returning guest, Ebony Simon, a.k.a. Lefty Grove, a.k.a. producer Giniss, has an Oasis story for us. We have teased this story, I believe, at least on Dat Fury, maybe going all the way back to the Long Play show. So this has been a long time coming. Welcome back, Ebony, and we're excited for your Oasis story.
Thank you very much. Just glad to be back, man. I always enjoy having these conversations with you.
Always fun to talk, and half the time I'm making a mental note to myself to not stop the recording when we end the last show we planned, because sometimes the best stuff has happened after the recording light went off. So I'm going to try not to make that mistake tonight.
Nice. Man, so the craziest thing about Oasis I can really tell you is that I unnaturally like the first two albums from that band. Okay, let me rephrase that.
Right, why do you say unnatural?
I love Oasis. Well, being from like the mindset of try it, you might like it when it comes to music, I did not think that Oasis was going to be something that I really dug. In college, when Definitely Maybe came out, 1994, I want to say it came out in 95, I had a kid a dorm mate, like in the same dorm,
mm-hmm.
that was like one of the few kids I hung out with, and he lived in North Kansas City. And every time we'd be in his room, we'd either be listening to You'd Prefer an Astronaut by Hum, which is a great album.
Love it, yes.
Or Definitely Maybe. And then every once in a while, we'd listen to Strap It On by Helmet. And then by that time, Meantime, it came out too. But it was mainly like Definitely Maybe. And we used to give him all kinds of grief for it, because his roommate was a black kid from Hannibal, Missouri, and he's from North Kansas City, and he went to private school, and he wasn't like rich, but he was one of those kids that like his parents kind of had the connections, so he got to do those things.
Mm-hmm.
And we used to always make fun of him, be like, why don't you just listen to David Bowie or T-Rex or any of the 15 other bands that I can hear from the British islands that these guys are imitating? Like, this is all just imitation music. This is just a really good bar band, is basically what we used to make fun of him for. And the anger and vitriol soon turned to begrudging respect, because they weren't writing bad songs. They were just highly derivative, you know? And then listening to like, Live Forever, which was like their big hit off of Definitely Maybe, their first album. That was one of those songs where it was like, okay, there's a little bit of originality in this group. So I gave him a chance, and then I listened to that album, and I was like, the first listen through, straight hate, like, ooh, this is trash. And then I was like, stop it. You don't hate it. Just give it another chance. And the second time through, I was like, all right, dude, this is good. I got to stop lying to myself. This is good.
We're going from just a bar band as a criticism to just a bar band as a compliment, kind of.
Yeah, like it literally went from like, oh, if these guys were to go on tour as like a Beatles cover band, or as like a David Bowie cover band, or as a Mark Bolan and T-Rex cover band, they would have done very well, because everything that they do well. It's just highly derivative, for lack of a better way to say it.
Sure, I think that's fair.
And fell in love with Oasis, unfortunately, at the same time that everybody else did. So it's What's the Story, Morning Glory comes out, and you got Wonderwall, and you have Don't Look Back in Anger, which was the first time I realized that Noel was actually the more talented of the Gallagher brothers, because all you ever heard of was Liam, because Liam was just, he had that younger brother, he had that baby brother energy, you know, because it's just the two of them, and he's the younger one. So it's like Noel just had that energy of, I got to take my little brother everywhere. And Liam's got that energy of, I'm trying to impress my big brother.
Yep.
So that's why What's the Story, Morning Glory actually ends up being a much better album than Definitely Maybe, even though I like Definitely Maybe more as an entire project. But it's also the album, like, What's the Story is that album where, like, Noel really came into his own as a songwriter. And his solo stuff later on, Noel Gallagher's High Flying Birds, kind of takes the storytelling part of his songwriting from What's the Story, Morning Glory, and just kind of runs with that. And you can kind of tell on Don't Look Back in Anger that Noel's just writing something. But the song where I really was like, oh, this dude's super talented is Cast No Shadows. And it's on What's the Story, Morning Glory. And all of a sudden, it's just a really, really poignant song about what seems like some sort of breakup or a fight that leads to a breakup. Because it's all about how you can do some things and lose the luster in someone else's eye, and then the aura that you had around you is gone. And it's over. So it's one of those songs, and it was just like, dude, this guy can write a song. But it was still highly derivative. So it was just kind of like, here we go again, you know? But it turned out to be a 2-trick pony instead of a 1-trick pony like I thought it was going to be. Because I think What's the Story, Morning Glory sold like 13 million albums or something like that.
Sounds about right, yeah.
Yeah, back when selling albums actually meant something. Like today, if you sold 13 million of anything, you're doing well. But 13 million albums, your second album out, and your MTV darlings, and they let you trash hotel rooms like Motley Crue, and, you know, you can pretty much say and do what you want and not get in trouble for it because, oh, that's Liam, he's just playing around, or, oh, that's Noel, he's just a serious person, he's really the musician of the group. And they got a lot of passes for being terrible people. In all honesty, like they really did. But the music was so good that a lot of people gave them that pass. And that's when, like, the Beatles, you know, kind of comparison really came into a big arc with them, because as much as we like the Beatles and as much as most people like the Beatles, when you look at those people as 4 individuals, the only one you really don't have anything bad to say about is Ringo, and he's the one that they downplayed the most, you know, but everybody else was kind of a trash human being at a point in time. And that's where, like, the Oasis Beatles thing came in, and then the Manchester kids in Oasis, you know, trying to be like the Liverpool kids in the Beatles. That was a big thing in, like, the British media back then. Like, I don't know if you remember it, but the magazine NME, New Music
Express,
I forget what the East of, they would always talk about how those guys would just bristle at the fact that they were compared to the Beatles, because they're like, we're nothing like them. And unfortunately, all their fans were like, I mean, yeah, you are.
Yeah, there's a little maybe protesting too much there.
Yeah. And it's also, the big thing for me about Oasis is that because they're so derivative and remind you of so many things, that is like the easiest music to end up just completely hammered listening to. Like, I can listen to Oasis, and if there's drinks in front of me, I'm getting drunk, because it's just such easy music to listen to, and it always reminds you that you can listen to something else. So, in honor of Oasis, I'm drinking.
Cheers. So it sounds like
Howie's drinking water.
I'm drinking water tonight. You mentioned Noel's High Flying Birds. It sounds like you kind of go all the way. So, like, I'll do Definitely Maybe. What's the Story? And there's that B-sides collection from, you know, but of material from around that era.
Oh, yeah.
And that's really, I kind of stop at that point. I've never really listened to Oasis beyond there. But it sounds like you go all the way.
I go further in, but I stopped after What's the Story, Morning Glory, until they broke up. Because the next two albums after that it was some of the worst music that I'll ever hear from a group that I like. And it wasn't even like it was highly derivative. It was just one dude angry at life in Noel and one dude angry at his brother in Liam. And Liam just Steven Tylered his way through all of his vocal cords. And I can tell that those albums needed a lot of work when it came to that, because they were using producers that, I mean, they used Nigel Goodrich for one, and that dude made Radiohead sound like, the New Millennium Pink Floyd, and just did wonders with those guys. But they couldn't do anything with Liam's voice because he had drank it away and smoked cigarettes away and all the drugs he was doing and just the absolute chaos he was creating as a human being. It took a toll, and it just didn't sound good. But there's one song on Standing on the Shoulders of Giants that's really good, and you can edit this part out because the song has a cuss word in it. But the song is the one that they use in Snatch during the last fight scene when Mickey is throwing the fight, but he actually ends up winning. The instrumental is called Fucking in the Bushes, and that's an Oasis song. But that's really kind of the last Oasis song where I'm like, yep, they still got it. But those are not good albums after the first two.
There's I'm sure you've seen it, but there's about an hour-long documentary on YouTube. Corey sent it to me last time. He and I talked about Oasis maybe like a year ago, kind of about the making of Definitely Maybe, I think. And they're going to this island, to try and concentrate, and they got to take a boat to get to the island where the studio is. Like a little boat, like a little rowboat.
Yeah.
But anyway, until I watched that documentary, and I'll try and find it and put a link to it in the notes, I had forgotten that they're kind of responsible for the whole like brick wall limiting loudness war thing that it's over basically, but like we still kind of feel the effects 30 years later.
Yeah.
And on the one hand, like the pressures were there. Someone was going to do it. So I don't blame them completely necessarily, but it happened to be them. And they kind of made it sound great. I'm not saying, but it's just like relentless to listen to those albums and how pressed against your ears they are.
Yeah. Like they record up a level. Like everything was at 11. In the Spinal Tap parlance of how they recorded it, everything
Totally.
was loud. And some of it, I think, was just personal preference for them. But I also think a lot of it was to cover up the mistakes that, 5 drunk guys were doing on a regular basis. They're just stuck out on that island, like you said, and they're recording, and there's just nothing but the best alcohol you can find. Whatever they wanted to bring in, they brought in, and just the record label gave them everything. And every once in a while, that ends up being a very bad thing for people in the recording arts that start off with promise, and then they have been given the keys to the castle just because they look promising as artists. So I think a lot of it comes from that. But after the breakup, Liam kept trying to make music, and it wasn't very good. He was in a band called BDI, not the greatest. I mean, it was basically he just tried to say, I was Oasis. This is me. I can do this. And tried to make an Oasis-style album, and it didn't work. And then he went away for a while, and then I guess... oh God, I won't say he got clean, but some way, somehow, like he just went away and came back and then put out this album called As You Were, which is actually pretty solid. He found a writing team of producers that could kind of give him the sound that he wanted. So he got back on that. But I've also since heard live recordings of him doing stuff, and his voice is just gone. Like it's highly surprising that Oasis is doing any sort of shows now, because it's got to all be crowd participation, almost like last time I saw Max Cavalera, his voice is so gone from screaming in Sepultura and Soulfly that it's just his fans know the music, so they sing it for him.
Just do it,
He gets them started, and then they just go from there, and that's kind of what the music is. But then you got Big Brother Noel. That dude makes amazing music. Like, I hate to say it. He's still got some issues and some personal things that I don't like him for, but that man has put out 4 extremely good albums with High Flying Birds as like his backing band. So a lot of Brothers in Arms is a High Flying Bird sample from Hear Me. So it's just those little things like that.
What's your favorite High Flying Birds record? Or like what one, if I'm going to listen to one, what one should I check out?
Well, I would say start at the beginning, but honestly, I'd start at the second one. Chasing Yesterdays, I think is the name of that album. And the best song that he's written, in my opinion, is on that album, and it's called The Right Stuff, which I also sampled, but you won't hear that song for a minute. It's super dope.
Nice tease. Actually, so did we cover the Oasis stuff? I got a little transition in mind here.
Yeah.
Anything else on Oasis?
I would say that if you've never listened to Oasis, start and stay with the first 2 albums, and then look for the solo stuff. Noel Gallagher's High Flying Birds and Liam Gallagher, just like Liam Gallagher. Those are the ones that's the stuff that's good. And then the Liam stuff is kind of good, but the Noel stuff, because he's kind of put together a super group, and a British super group of like famous people from British bands that really didn't break here. And they all kind of got together and made really good stuff, and it's super jazzy and nice.
Cool. Very cool. Yeah, so my transition idea was just, and you mentioned your album Hear Me, which we covered on the show and came out earlier this year. So I'm certainly not wanting to like press you about more new stuff or anything, but I just wanted to ask like how music is going, how your creativity is going lately.
It kind of got put on hold for a little bit. I'm not sure. When's the last time we talked? Was it August for Lou's project?
Yeah, that'd be it.
So at the end of July, I lost my grandmother. So I was dealing with that. Eventually, what ended up happening was the job that I was at was extremely stressful for me, and I was going through a lot. So I left that job. I'm back in the restaurant industry, but I'm commuting to work now. So in the process of getting that re-streamlined, I have kind of put the music on the background for a second. But I did hit the local music shop, Spectrum Music, Spectrum Record Shop. Spectrum Music, I forget. But I hit them, and I go in, and I just, that's just the music guy in me. You're probably the same way. You just hit a record store. You don't plan on buying anything. You just want to kind of give yourself an outline of what you want to do. And I found some stuff in there, and I also kind of drive Lyft on the side. So I spent a day driving Lyft so I could go back the next day and buy a couple of records. And I started working with some of those, and pulled out a Roxy Music sample that I've been working with, and some early Sia, like right after she was doing the projects with 07, and a couple other things that I won't mention because they're super solid, and I think that if I give those away, that I'm going to lose a little bit of a project I'm working on. But I'm back in the fold.
Cool. Well, I'm sorry to hear about your grandmother. We hadn't talked about that, and that's always tough.
Yeah, she was a good lady. Super cool. But for the most part, music for me has been a great way to self-therapy,
Totally.
Because the last job is over, I lost my insurance, so I couldn't continue therapy. But this job there is a window where I can get insurance back. And once I get back on insurance through this job, I'm going right back to therapy. Just because I like the direction and the framework that it was giving me, because I knew I had pretty much gone as far as I possibly could on my own with fixing these things. And I just like to have that professional hand to kind of help out. But that's neither here nor there, because that's my path. And, you know, if you don't want to do therapy, don't do therapy. If you do therapy, do it and just embrace it for what it is, which is a way to help yourself. So.
Absolutely. And I've had several successful engagements with that kind of mindset my own self. So it's sort of neither here nor there, but I think it affects a lot of artists. And we're talking about it more these days, just overall in culture, and I think that's good. But it still can take. The thing I always say to people, I'll say it here, but I say to friends who are thinking about it, and I said this to a friend recently, and he said, you know, he was thinking about doing it for the first time, and he said he was really grateful for the advice. But so much of the success, I'm pretty sure I've said this to you, but to the audience, so much of the success, in my opinion and in my experience, is based on the connection you feel with your counselor or your therapist. And really, it's an overused word these days, but really just, are you vibing with them? And if you're not, that doesn't mean that therapy or counseling is not for you. It means you need a different therapist, and that's okay. Good ones understand that. And most of them are good. And so it's really important, if you're not feeling it after a couple, so usually give it a couple, 3 maybe if you can, 2 or 3. But it's okay to switch and find somebody else. And I've done that before too, and that's been a good move for me at a couple different points.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I got lucky, and my first therapist ended up being literally the best thing for me. She held my feet to the flames. I did not get to sit on the fence about anything. It was like, look, you made a choice to come here, make a choice to get better. And the only thing I can do is kind of hold your hand to make sure that you're making that choice. But I can't make that choice for you. And I was like, oh, and then it all kind of clicked. And at that point in time, everything I had an issue with just got fleshed out. Mm-hmm. And if it didn't get fleshed out, it's definitely on the boards to get fleshed out. So.
Yeah, that sounds fantastic. I mean, some amount of challenge is good, and like different people and where you are at a given point, you might be ready for more or less of that. But at some point in the process, some amount of challenge and pushing in that broader supportive context, I think is really good. You're ready from the jump. That's awesome. Some people, it takes a while to build the trust and to feel the safety that they need in order to be ready for that challenge, and that's also perfectly fine.
Yeah, it definitely is.
But I'm getting to the edge of, I'm not a counselor, so I'm getting to the edge of what I should probably say about it. But this has been great. Thank you for the Oasis story. We've got more to talk about. I'm really excited to have the next conversation we're about to have. But listeners, we're going to let you go. Links to Lefty's music in the description. And we will see you next time. Oh, one last thing.
Yo,
this is probably going to be the birthday episode.
Nice.
So happy birthday, Dat Fury Radio. 1 year of doing it with the Dat Fury crew. Hope to have more of them on in the coming year. But yeah, we did a year straight. Didn't miss a week.
That's awesome.
Super proud of that.
I'm glad I got to be a part of that.
Yeah, you're it.
And long play. Like, this is awesome.
Yeah, there were 3 seasons of the long play, each of which was like, so it was 3 years, but we took long breaks at different times.
Yeah.
Anyway, happy birthday, Dat Fury. Thanks for being with us, listeners. We appreciate you. And Ebony and I will see you next week.
Queens in the house.